Hi there! In today's video, we're going to be doing a simple DIY using jute twine to turn this pot on this fake plant into this. It's almost scary how cheap this is, but the result is amazing and it is so fresh and so nice to have this in your decor, knowing that you did it for very little. My name is Brittany, and thanks for watching my Boldly Rise YouTube channel today. If you like what you see, go ahead and click that subscribe button below for more DIY videos. Alright, let's get into it. So I'm using just a cheap fake plant that I actually really love. It's just a plastic outer, it's got like little styrofoam inside of it, but you could really do this on a mason jar, a can, a ceramic flower pot, whatever works for you and what you're looking for. Then there's jute twine. This is about 2 millimeters thick, so it's not very thick, but you can use whatever thickness you want. This was just about $2, so it's super cheap, and that is what we're looking for, is cheap products to make beautiful things. And that jute twine is going to be wrapped around that bottom part of the pot, so you do want to make sure you have enough. You're also going to need scissors because we're going to be cutting that jute twine up in small little sections. Then we're going to be using a hot glue gun, and that's what we're going to be using to stick the jute twine to the pot itself. And you want to make sure you have plenty of the refills because you're going to use more than you think. And then you want a paper towel as well, just to keep the hot glue gun from dripping on things when it is turned on. So the first thing you're going to want to do is cut the jute twine into at the most 3-foot strands, and you're going to need a lot depending on how big your pot is or can or whatever you're using. I used about 18 of these 3-foot strands, and I'll show you later why I'm only saying up to 3 feet. But in this part of the process, you're just cutting all of those strands. You are able to go back later and cut more strands if you need more as you're doing this DIY, and that is totally fine. You can cut these as you go. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this twine and braiding it. Because it is so thin, the braids will help kind of make it a little bit thicker, help cover some more surface area of the pot, and it will just give it a little bit better decor look. But you want to tie a knot at the top, a few inches from the very top of the string, because when you do end up tying it around something to hold the braid as you're braiding, you want to have enough room to tie it around something. The next step in this process, when you're done tying it around something, is to actually start braiding it. Now this is where I was talking about earlier why you only want up to 3-foot strands, is because when you are braiding it, the bottoms will start braiding together and you have to keep kind of pulling and undoing the braid at the bottom as you're braiding on the top. So if you have too long of strands, then you're gonna be stretching your arm out super far trying to undo the bottom part and keep the braid flowing. So 3-foot strands, up to 3-foot strands, just kind of helps to keep that issue at bay and just kind of helps you to do a braid a little bit faster than normal. We're just gonna rush through these braids. I wish I could do this in real life, but that would take part of the fun of doing a DIY. But you're just gonna braid, and then once you get to the end, just tie a knot wherever is comfortable for you. I just like tying it closer to the bottom because then I get more braid and I'm not having to waste some of that twine. You don't need to worry about tying it too tight because we're actually going to be cutting off those knots when we start using a hot glue gun. Then you'll take the string off of whatever you tied it to and your braid is done. Then you're just going to keep repeating that process over and over until you have as many braids as you think you need to cover the surface area that you're wanting to cover. I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse into kind of what it will look like. If you're a little leery of doing the braid, I actually really like how this looks. It just kind of gives it a really pretty uniform look, and then when you add all of those together on top of each other on the pot, it looks really good. But you don't have to braid if you don't want to. I liked it because it will cover more surface area on the pot, but I also just really like how it looks. This step in the process is completely optional. I do it because it's just easier to work with when I'm using the hot glue gun. But I actually will take the scissors and snip off that excess twine on the tops and the bottom, just because when you are gluing it on, even though we're going to cut those knots off later, when you are gluing it, it just kind of helps keep it from sticking where you don't want it to stick to, and just makes everything easier in the long run. Just a fun bonus idea for you: you can take those braided strands, all of the ones that you have, and create an even bigger braid if you really want a visible braid on your pot or your can or your mason jar, whatever it is. But that's just a good idea, and you would do the same exact process. You would tie the top, you would start braiding, tie the bottom as well, and then you would just glue it on later, like we're going to do with all these little individual strands. But for what I'm doing, I want to keep the small little braided strands, just because the pot that I'm using is really small. Here is where we get to start hot gluing the twine on. So I have about 5 strands here. I actually needed 6, but it's like what I said earlier in the video. If you need to braid more as you go, then that is totally fine. It absolutely works with this project. I made a DIY mistake here, and I didn't realize this until later, but it does not look good to have the knot on the pot itself. So here you're seeing that I'm starting it just by dotting a little bit of hot glue onto the beginning of the strand itself, and then just pushing it straight onto the pot. And that's what you'll do, but I highly recommend that you cut that knot off first. I will show you in just a little bit how to cut that knot off, and then use the hot glue gun to glue it on and just give it a nice flowing consecutive look with the strand before. But you don't have to worry, when you do cut that knot off, the braid won't come undone, so we don't have to worry about that at all, which is nice. And then after initially starting your strand of twine, you're just going to do really small thin lines of the hot glue around the pot, but you don't want to go so far ahead because the hot glue will dry really quickly. But you're just gonna put that strand of glue down and then lay your twine over it, and you want to press down on it. It won't hurt if it gets on your fingers, I promise. But you just push it down, and you want to push it up so that it gets to the top of where you're wanting it to reach. Then you just keep doing this over and over and over. As you are gluing, really remember to, when you lay the strand down, to push down and then push up so that it meets the strand right above it, because then you won't see the surface underneath it, and we definitely don't want to see that. So now that we have the first strand all glued on, we're going to take that second strand, and like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to cut that knot off. See how bad that would look if both of those knots stayed there? I already glued on that last knot, so that one is staying. But it just would not look very good to have all of those bumps everywhere, and you can kind of see I'm trying to play with it, and then, oh, it clicks. I can just cut it right off. So just cut that little knot off, and see how that braid doesn't come undone, it just stays, which is super nice. You just lay it right up to the end of the first one, and dab a little glue. Do it how you would start the very first strand, when you just put the little glue down and then put your string back on there, or your twine back on there. You're just going to put that little line, little dab, and then take the end of that braid with the knot cut off and just meet the end of the first strand, press it down, and then push it up so that you meet the top, or the strand right above it. When you finally get down to the bottom, you're just going to glue as far as you can, press down the twine as much as you can, and then just take your scissors and cut it off to the point where you can glue a little tiny bit more just to make sure that end isn't going to fray or come off, and you just finish it there. Just put a little glue down, put the little end of your last twine down, and that's it. That is finishing the pot, and it just looks so good, and it's actually super nice to run your fingers over. But that's how you finish it. And here it is all finished. I absolutely love how this turned out, and it was super easy, super cheap. It really only took me at most a couple hours to do the braiding and the cutting and the gluing, but I am just so pleased with how well it turned out. If you enjoyed this video, then by all means, go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more DIY and home decor videos to help you decorate your home without spending a ton of money. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments below, and I will be sure to get back to you. Happy DIYing, friends!